For these 9 months by herself, and she's a people person, so she needs a little comfort from people. I always like to have people give Pat a little bit of applause for her part of this whole adventure.
Yay, Pat!
Okay, that's enough.
He's still.
He did the walk.
Okay. Now, I'm also told that we have about a half hour. Everybody can hear me? Good, because this is as loud as it gets. We have about a half hour. This is an hour program, and I will just keep rambling on. And when I see people starting to get up to leave or nodding and falling asleep, or when the hook comes out and pulls me off the floor, I will desist. You've got the watch, so you can.
I'll give you a point.
Okay. I divide this into two parts, really. The program starts with a little bit of the background. People want to know what the walk was like. I get a lot of questions about what was the hardest part and the loneliest part and all sorts of that thing. So, and where did you get the idea for the walk, that sort of thing. So we talk about that first, and we try to weave it within some of the places that we've been. And then, if we have time, and we won't have much, we will take a quick walk across the country. This is what we usually do. We don't even do all of it. We do about half of these. And I really like to get here because these are my favorite places on Route 6. So I'll happen to be out in the west. And we may get to some of them, we may not. I guess we'll skip Pennsylvania. That'll be
Thank God.
Well, you know, it's always hazardous when you're talking to somebody about their own town because they know a lot more about it than you do. And you start making these pronunciations about what their town is like, and they say, no, it's not. And actually, we'll come across that. I was going to skip Massachusetts, but Massachusetts does illustrate that. But let me start by telling you, I worked for a long time as a newspaper reporter, decades actually, in Connecticut. Far side of Connecticut, a place called Danbury. If you've ever been on I-84 going east, you would have gone through Danbury. And the next town over to the west is Brewster, New York. One day I picked up a map, and I looked at the eastern side of the state of Connecticut, and I saw all these little towns that I didn't know existed. And it turns out I wasn't alone, because when I do the programs now, I start out by asking, if I happen to be doing one in western Connecticut, I'll say to people, how many of you know where Brooklyn is? And we're about 50, 60 miles from New York, and all the hands go up. Everybody knows where Brooklyn is. And then I say, Brooklyn, Connecticut. And about 95% of those hands go down. It's a town in our own state, and we don't even know that it's in our state. And if I really want to be mean, I won't ask them Brooklyn, I'll say Scotland. How many of you know where Scotland is? And most of the hands are, I know where Scotland is. And then I say Scotland, Connecticut. And the hands all go down. And again, we know more about another country than we do about our own state. And anyway, and I was the same way. When I was looking at that map probably 15 years ago now, I saw all these little towns I didn't know in Connecticut. And I thought that was kind of sad because Connecticut is such a small state. It's about the size of maybe 2 counties of Pennsylvania. So I talked to the editors of the newspaper, and we decided, yeah, we should do some stories about the rest of Connecticut. And the way we decided to do it was I would walk with the photographer, and we would just write and take pictures of whatever we encountered as we walked. And we did 20 miles a day, and Connecticut is so small, we finished it in 6 days. And it was a very popular series. And we happened to choose Route 6 for the walk because in Connecticut, Route 6 starts on the eastern side of the state, right? It goes right through some of those small towns like Brooklyn and et cetera. And it goes up right through the state capital, and then it goes up to the wealthy Litchfield Hills, and then finally ends in Danbury, which is where the newspaper was. So it was perfect for what we wanted to do. And that's all I knew about Connecticut, about Route 6. And I've got to tell you, the reason I've got this chart here is these will be the pages of the places that we'll be visiting along the way. And if you look at page 26, 27, which is not on here, but I do remember it. Now, as I said, I didn't know anything about Route 6. I live near Route 6, and that actually is not too far from my house. Probably about a 15-minute drive from my house. A lot of Route 6 in Connecticut is rural, and even the parts that aren't rural, it's a 2-lane road. I got curious after I'd done our walk with the photographer. I got curious as to where Route 6 went. And I was surprised to see that it went all the way to the tip of Cape Cod, about 150 miles or so. because again, it's just this little tiny road. I never realized how long it was. And that was to the east. Then I started looking to the west, and it just kept going and going and going all the way to California. Now, there's another little story about, I'll tell that anyway, we'll skip what we skipped. It went all the way to California. And it turns out Route 6 is the longest continuous highway in the country. This little two-lane road that goes through Towanda, longest continuous highway in the country, was once the longest highway, period. It was once a coast-to-coast highway from Provincetown, Mass. To, I can't even remember the name of it now, Long Beach, California. But in the 1960s, California cut off about 400 miles of Route 6. So now it ends in Bishop, California, and I believe that is page, where'd it go? 223. Look at page 223. That's the current end of Route 6 in Bishop, California. Now, we call Route 6 the longest continuous highway. The actual longest highway, when California cut that off, Route 6 was no longer the longest highway. Route 20 is now the longest highway, but it cuts through Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park, all national parks do not have numbered highways. So Route 6 is Route 20 is kind of a divided highway, each side of the national park. So that's a little bit about Route 6 and a little bit about how the walk. Oh, and by the way, when I saw all of that, I said, wouldn't it be a great idea to do for the entire country what we had done for Connecticut? That is, walk across Route 6 and tell people, just about the people and places that we had seen. And I brought this idea up, by the way, to the newspaper. I said, wouldn't it be a great idea to have me and a photographer walk across the country and tell people about the places we've seen? And they just laughed at me and said, we're not sending you on a 9-month junket across the country. So I had to wait until I retired to do that. And that's what I did. Okay, so that takes care of that. A lot of people ask me about the difficulties we encountered, and there were a number of them. One of them being rain. If you look on page 59, you'll see rain. If you look back at that page 26, 27, you'll see rain. Even if you look at the beginning of Cape Cod in Provincetown, you won't see quite rain, but you'll see the skies were cloudy. It did rain on the first day, and it rained a lot, all the way up to Pennsylvania. Shouldn't have been a surprise, because when did we start? We started in late March. What comes after March? April and May, the rainy season in the Northeast. So we did get a lot of rain, and rain is obviously not the worst of the problems you're going to hit. I should back up a little bit and tell you, when we started in late March, that was late. We really should have started in early March or mid-March at the latest, because we needed to get across the Rocky Mountains, Loveland Pass in particular, 12,000 feet, before the snow flew, which means before the end of September out there, because they close the roads once they get a lot of snow. Because we left in late March, that meant everything had to go perfectly. If somebody was coming to me now and saying, let's do a walk across the U.S. and start in Massachusetts in late March, I'd say, don't even think about it, because you're not going to have 9 months when everything goes absolutely perfectly. I couldn't get sick or hurt. The driver couldn't get sick. We had a driver, and I'll tell you about him in a few minutes. He couldn't get sick or hurt. Nothing could happen to the car. Nothing could happen in our families that would cause us to have to go back and stop the walk, because we had to get, at least before we got to the Rockies, because we just get snowed out and get stuck there. So we did do that, and I kind of lost my train of thought because I went backwards here. We were talking about the rain, and so the rain is not the biggest of problems. We have snow, we have hills, and we have injuries, and we also have the time schedule we had to meet. But I talk about rain because it gives me an opportunity to talk about the one big injury I had on the trip. We were in Holly, Pennsylvania, an old hotel, Holly Hotel, I believe it is. That's over on the other side of Scranton. I was stepping out of the shower, stepped on my belt buckle.
Ooh.
Straight up like that.
Ooh, ouch.
Went right to the bone, my foot. And remember, we couldn't, I had no spare days. I had to do 100 miles a week. And so that was 5 days a week, and we had put together a string of newspapers. We needed a couple of days to get our stories and pictures together because the newspapers were paying us for those stories, and that's how we funded the trip. I got lots of blood. And I knew that if I went to a doctor, he'd put some stitches in it and stay off it for a couple of weeks. And we couldn't do that. So I was out there the next day, walking, and of course, it's raining like crazy. The bandages that I had put on had fallen off at some point. And I had to take off the shoe, find a drugstore, get some more bandages, take off the shoe. And when I took off the shoe, I poured out this mixture of blood and water, this red mixture from my shoe. Now, later in the year, I know there probably are not a whole lot of Red Sox fans here, but later in the year, the Boston Red Sox won their first World Series, and one of the real heroes of that whole, I don't know whether it was divisional series or the actual World Series, was Curt Schilling, because he pitched a series game, World Series or divisional series game, with a foot injury that caused him to have a shoe full of blood. He was the absolute mega hero in Boston, the strong man, the Superman for pitching a World Series game. They prayed for him and everything else, with a bloody shoe. And I'm thinking, 6 months ago I had a bloody shoe and nobody said anything at all to me. So I was a little peeved. Anyway, so that was the one injury I had on the trip. We were very, very fortunate. Of course, more than rain, you got to worry about snow. And we did hit snow once on the trip. As I said, we had to cross Loveland Pass at 12,000 feet before the end of September. We just made it. We crossed Loveland Pass. A week later, it snowed, and they closed the pass. I got to the other side of Colorado, and we were staying at a ranch at the time. And I was thinking, we've made it. We've crossed the Rockies. So I started packing my winter clothes and getting ready to ship them back to the east, because I figured we passed the Rockies. So it's got to be all downhill from here. Boy, was I wrong. And I figured, where had I been in the West? Southern California and Las Vegas. So I figured, it's all nice and warm here in the West, all hot, all desert and hot. I thought deserts were all hot. I learned a lot. So I was packing my clothes, getting ready to send them home, and the owner of the ranch came over and said, "What you doing?" And I said, "Well, packing my clothes, getting ready to ship them home, my winter clothes." He just laughed at me and said, "Don't ship your clothes home. We do have winter here. And besides, you've got to go through Nevada." And I said, "Well, what's so special about Nevada?" Turns out Nevada is the most mountainous state in the 48 states. Here's how you cross Nevada. You're shaking your head. You've been there. Okay.